Through this thought-provoking presentation, the incredible Speaker Salon alum, Brooke Siem, talks about the medicalization of mental illness and how she broke free. Enjoy this incredible big talk from Speaker Salon alum, Brooke Siem.
When I was 30 years old, I calculated the day of my own death. I came up with this number by taking a dozen online life expectancy tests, averaging the results, and figuring in leap years. Then I scheduled the whole thing on my Google Calendar at 12 p.m. on November 6, 2069, a Wednesday. It was a long time to wait to die, so I passed the time by calculating other things. For example, I calculated that I could get exactly 42 3mm slices out of one 5-inch cucumber, and that I had walked my dog 8,942 times, and that over the course of my life, I'd taken 10,920 antidepressants. My father died when I was 15. I was taken to a child psychiatrist who diagnosed me with major depressive disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. He gave me a script for Effexor XR and Wellbutrin XL, two drugs that to this day are not approved for use in children or teens by the FDA. But he said my depression was genetic, predisposed. It was a chemical imbalance. He said, take these pills, come back in 6 months. We'll find a way to manage you. I didn't bother questioning this narrative. I mean, why would I? I was 15. I was taught to listen to doctors and respect institutions. So when a doctor told me that, when I had depression, I didn't question the need for antidepressants. But at 5'3" and 125 pounds, with air resistance slowing my rate of fall by 0.24 meters per second squared, I also calculated that it would take exactly 5.58 seconds for me to fall from my 30th story window to the cement below. And on that day, compared to the 19,673 days I knew I had left to live, 5.58 seconds felt like freedom. It did dawn on me that this was an odd exercise for someone whose antidepressants were working as advertised. So I dove into the literature, and what I learned was that we don't have a single randomized, placebo-controlled clinical trial that measures the long-term efficacy of antidepressants. What we do have are 4 to 12-week trials typically conducted by pharmaceutical companies, which means that the company that benefits from the sale of the drug is the same one that controls how the data is used, where the data is published, and which trial results are published, which means that neither the doctors, the patients, nor even the FDA get the full story. Furthermore, unlike testing for diabetes, there's not a test to measure someone's level of depression. And the same goes for ADHD, schizophrenia, and all the rest. There's not a single practical biomarker, scan, or blood test to diagnose or identify mental illness. So how could my doctor have even known I had a mental illness if there wasn't a test for it? This all made me deeply uncomfortable because I hadn't had a single unmedicated moment in my entire adult life. I was a child when these drugs were prescribed to me. The decision was made for me. And every single aspect of my personality was affected by that choice, from creativity to empathy, even sexual and reproductive health. And here I was learning that there wasn't even evidence to support it. So I talked to my doctor, like the commercials told me to do. And she said that because I was on 37.5 milligrams of Effexor, which is the lowest dose on the market, if I wanted to discover an unmedicated life, I'd have to stop taking this drug cold turkey. Let me be clear, this was incredibly irresponsible advice. Effexor is notoriously difficult to get off of due to its very short half-life and steep CERT occupancy, which is the measure of the percentage of serotonin transporters that are blocked by an antidepressant at a given dose. But I didn't know that at the time. Why should I have known it? I was just the patient. But without Effexor XR in my system, my mind began to fill with bloody homicidal visions. I developed an intolerable sensitivity to light and sound and tore the clothes off my back when shirts I've worn for years became unbearably itchy. I even bent a metal ironing board in half out of rage, and this went on for a year. But I was also having these little moments of joy and wonder and creativity that I hadn't experienced in 15 years. Even the way I saw color changed. It was like the saturation slider was turned up on my whole life, and I needed that color. I was desperate to hold on to it. I needed color like I needed air. And so I didn't tell my psychiatrist about what was happening to me. I had a deep intuition that if I told her, she would put me on an involuntary psychiatric hold. This happens all the time. I know because today my work and my book focuses on depression recovery and safety prescribing practices. So in addition to talking to parents and corporations, I also speak to doctors and residents about psychiatric drug withdrawal because infuriatingly, this is not taught in medical school. Without withdrawal-informed doctors, patients run the risk of being diagnosed from everything from schizophrenia to bipolar. When that happens, they can be hospitalized, often against their will, where they're forced onto sedatives and antipsychotics, all because they were having a withdrawal reaction to a low dose of a common antidepressant they were told was safe. It's now been 7 years since my last antidepressant, and the suicidal thoughts evaporated when the drugs got out of my system, which leads me to wonder if they were actually contributing to my depression. And perhaps for a small and specific subset of people, there's an argument that pharmaceutical intervention may be of short to medium-term aid. But in the 35 years since Prozac has been on the market, it doesn't take a PhD to look around and come to the conclusion that what we're doing is not working very well. I think this is because these drugs, at the end of the day, are no match for what we all really need, which is love. The sudden death of my father was not about the absence of a person. It was about the sudden absence of love. That's where I got lost, and that's where the depression appeared. And I don't think that this is an isolated incident, because when I talk to other people and I ask them to tell me their story without using the word depression, it boils down to a lack of, cessation of, or betrayal of love. Every time. So I think that my depression was trying to alert me to the magnitude of love I was going to need to learn to create for myself in order to make up for the depth of the loss. And that was going to take time, real time. The second that process was medicalized was the second that opportunity was taken from me. But now, today, the depression and anxiety are gone because I have learned to create that love for myself through years of deep self-work. And thank God, because as of today, I have 16,964 days left to live. Maybe, hopefully. But what I know is that I want them all. I want all the futures I never thought I'd have. Because today, compared to 5.58 seconds, 16,964 days feels like freedom.
If you enjoyed this big talk, I would love to hear what your biggest takeaways were in the comments so we can fully support you. And if you desire to be on my big stage, head on over to thespeakersalon.com so that you can apply to come to New York City and take my stage where I will support you for 6 weeks. And remember, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, go ahead and hit the notification and subscription button so that you get access to all of our recent videos. Remember, your voice matters. Big love. Mwah.